Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're dusting off one of the most famous stories of all time. You know the one, the classic Sunday school parable of the wise and foolish builders. Two builders, two houses, one massive storm. We've all probably heard it so many times we think we have it totally figured out, right? Well, today we're going to look at the exact theological blueprint derived directly from the source texts. And honestly, it is going to completely change how you view this ancient architectural metaphor. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's dive right into this. The source material points out a massive misconception that, I've got to admit, totally caught me off guard. When we picture the rock that the wise man built his house on, our modern minds almost automatically picture this vague, warm feeling of faith or belief. But according to the author's analysis, that's just not what the text actually says. The rock isn't a feeling at all. It's made of incredibly specific sayings, and that is sharply contrasted against the sand, which represents shifting human opinions, traditions, and, our own self-effort.
Section 1. The misunderstood rock. What did the builder actually use? So to really grasp this, we need to analyze what that foundation is literally built upon. And right here is the key. At the very end of the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 7, Jesus explicitly says, "Everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does them is like a wise man who built his house on the rock." This is a huge paradigm shift, guys. He doesn't say these general ideas, he specifically says these sayings, which naturally prompts a pretty massive question for us as readers. What exact messages or words were being referenced here?
Section 2. Tracking to the source. Finding the origins. To uncover exactly what those sayings are, the source material acts kind of like a literary detective. It takes us on this chronological step backward through the ancient text. Basically, we have to go back up the mountain, so to speak, to see where this whole speech even began. If you start at the parable's conclusion in chapter 7 and you track backward past chapter 6, you slam right into the origin of the sermon in chapter 5. Jesus was summarizing everything he had just talked about. He was pointing directly back to the very first words that came out of his mouth that day.
Now, what's really interesting here is that what we find in Matthew 5 are the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. These poetic, highly symbolic sayings are actually the foundational rock being described in the original story. They aren't just nice, decorative poetry to make us feel good. They are the bedrock. But let's be honest for a second. For our very Western, practical minds, trying to build a literal, structural foundation out of ancient poetic phrases, well, it can feel a bit like trying to nail Jell-O to a wall. How are you actually supposed to act on this? Section 3. 6 foundational pillars, the metamorphosis. This brings us to a really crucial metamorphosis. We're transitioning from those poetic sayings in Matthew 5 to actual concrete structure. The author of the book Milky Way brings up a truly fascinating premise here, stating flat out, Christianity isn't progressive, it is original. The core argument is that whatever was originally taught is exactly what the later apostles taught, meaning the writer of the book of Hebrews wouldn't just be introducing brand new foundational concepts out of nowhere. No, they were teaching the exact same concepts as the original Beatitudes, just repackaged in a more literal, structural format. And here is that structural format from Hebrews chapter 6. We're given 6 foundational principles of the doctrine of Christ. Check this out. Repentance from dead works, faith toward God, the doctrine of baptisms, laying on of hands, resurrection of the dead, and eternal judgment. The source views these not as random, disconnected rules or brand new ideas, but as the concrete blueprint of the Beatitudes. It's literally the exact same message, just translated into an architectural blueprint we can actually build on. Section 4. Connecting the core principles, unpacking the pairings. Let's see how this all builds. When you put these two texts side by side, the source brilliantly maps them into 3 distinct categories. Let's unpack how that ancient poetry maps perfectly onto these 6 structural pillars. The first pairing focuses entirely on our relationship with God. Look at how beautifully this aligns. Poor in spirit means recognizing your own spiritual destitution. Admitting you literally have nothing to bring to the table. And that maps directly to repentance from dead works, which is all about giving up on your own self-effort and religiosity. And honestly, what a massive relief it is to just let go of that exhausting self-effort. Then you have the meek, which is paired right up with faith toward God. Being meek isn't about being weak. It's about trusting the system and trusting the Creator. It's having the deep faith that God will get you exactly where you need to go.
Then the second pairing moves into our daily walk with others. Hunger and thirst for righteousness connects directly to the doctrine of baptisms. Think of it this way. When you're physically covered in dirt, you naturally hunger to be washed, right? It's about recognizing that internal dirt and wanting to go through that cleansing water to be made righteous. After that, we have the merciful, which pairs just beautifully with laying on of hands. As the source notes, there is really nothing more merciful than laying a gentle hand on someone's shoulder to be a blessing to them, to comfort them, or to pray for them. It's just pure relational mercy in action.
The third and final pairing looks outward to an eternal perspective. The source maps the resurrection of the dead to being pure in heart. It represents this incredible crossover from a totally dead state into a new life where you can finally see God. And finally, eternal judgment aligns perfectly with the peacemakers. And I've got to say, the logic here is incredibly striking. When you truly recognize and understand that a real eternal judgment is coming, it completely alters how you treat people today. It makes you want to sit up, make things right, and genuinely act as a peacemaker with whatever time you have left.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that without a guide to see these connections, this incredible ancient blueprint remains almost entirely hidden in plain sight. I mean, you could read Matthew 5 and Hebrews 6 your entire life and never once realize that they are the exact same architectural foundation. That's the beauty of the source material we're exploring today, the book Milky Way. It acts as an analytical tool, like a mirror, helping you look back at those original words so you can actually see the map clearly for yourself.
Section 5. The ultimate question. Where are you building?
And this brings us full circle, right back to that hillside with the two builders. One house is built on a rock-solid 6-pillared foundation made of these exact teachings. The other? Built on the shifting sand of human opinion. The storm is brewing on the horizon, and it's coming equally for both houses. Which leaves us with the exact same open challenge posed to those original listeners. It's a direct challenge to examine your own bedrock. The storm is inevitable, but your foundation is entirely your choice. So which foundation will you build on? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this deep dive leaves you curious to explore these blueprints even further.